Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross. I hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday. It's got a little bit of an alliteration to it. Loving it. Got a wonderful guest today, Paul Boer, president WHR Group, friend of mine, partner for a while. Can't wait to have him on. Can't wait to talk about the RMC world, which is going through some changes and kind of learning the special sauce there at his company and his story. So I'm really excited about that. Also want to go ahead and plug our book club book of the month for the month of June. It's called White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. You can pick this up from my friend Janet Webster Jones at Source Booksellers in Detroit. Support your independent community bookstores. Get this book. It is hard to find on Amazon. They will order for you. Phone number 313-832-1155, sourcebooksellers@gmail.com. Check it out. Tell her I said to call her. She's a lovely lady, and she'll talk your ear off. She's wonderful. So hopefully you get that book. We are going to be doing the book club discussion on July 2nd. With we got a great lineup of folks tuning in who are very brave and talking about this. So I'm very excited. I actually got an email from a CEO of a relocation services company today, and I'm not gonna say his name, but he's the CEO of a prominent company. He says, "Hi Ben, I saw that you had the book White Fragility on your shelf in some of your videos. My wife got it, and I found myself with a strange aversion to it, as the topic of racism is inherently uncomfortable for me." Got that, but thought since you supported it, I'd read it, spend an hour with it, and I feel more open to further education about the complex system of racism in the U.S. Anyway, I thought you'd appreciate that. Hope you're having a great week. So these are the kind of conversations we're having, and it's just really cool to be a part of this process. Got some folks checking in here. I want to get to all of you. Let's see here real quick and acknowledge a couple of people. Simon Johns, hi from a very hot UK, Great Britain. Tim Quirk, hey y'all from Western New York. Mena from Dubai checking in. Good to see you. John Fernandez, what's up? All right, let's bring out our guest today. Paul Boer, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Ben. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so happy that you're here with us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I mean, gosh, it's the end of June in the relocation business, and I'm very honored that you'd find time to be here with us.
Oh, come on.
Well, hey, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't make time, so you know what? I really appreciate it. No, seriously.
No problem.
How's the summer? How's the summer been treating you? It's a weird year, right?
Well, it's a very interesting year, that's for sure. It's from a business standpoint, we're probably about 75% of where we were last year, so we feel pretty good about it. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, we had our best authorization week in actually a couple of years. So it's been really strange. When this whole thing started, I thought, looking at our weekly reports, I'd see 0, 0, 0 across the board. But I'm pleasantly surprised by the number of people that are still out there actioning relos, and things are still happening, and it's just building week to week in terms of our volume. So it's been a very much of a roller coaster, but it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, but things are going well.
You mentioned you're about 75% of where you were last year. I feel like that is ahead of the curve, honestly, and probably has something to do with your business mix. But I'd like to actually put it out there to the folks who are watching right now. We like to kind of start off with an audience poll, and this is a good one to take a temperature check. We've been doing these checks kind of every few weeks. So here we are. It's June 24th. I'd love to ask everybody, what is your business like right now in this moment, this week, compared to, let's say, this week last year? Where are you at with new initiations and new people, initiating relocation services at your company? Paul mentioned 75%. I'd say our company's probably around 60%, to be completely candid. I'd love to get kind of a temperature check out there in the world. So go ahead and leave that in the comments, and we'll check in with all of you as well. Paul, what do you think that being at 75%, I mean, what do you attribute that to? What do you attribute that to?
I think it's just a diversity of our client mix. We do work with not only Fortune 500 companies, but also smaller companies that are out there. But then we also have U.S. government business that we do. So it's kind of like a yin and a yang with government and corporate. Sometimes when government's up, corporate's down, and the reverse holds true as well. So it's just a diversification of business that you have, and being able to be in multiple lines more than anything.
And what about the food service, right? Food service industry, right? I mean, that's been a pretty decent business through this, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of food service clients, and obviously they're doing really well right now with some of the things that they're doing, and they're expanding globally as well. And so it's been an interesting time in terms of what companies are up, what companies are down. We have an oil and gas client that's actually down right now, but and it's to be expected, right, with what's happening with the supply out there. So the diversification is just critical in terms of making sure that your volume can stay on track to some extent. And I think everybody's hurt right now with what's going on.
Yeah. We got 29 people on LinkedIn right now. We got another half dozen people on Facebook right now. So go ahead, give Paul a round of applause, hit that applause button. Let's get this party started. We hit 30 and very nice. Awesome. I want to check in with some comments here before we get into the dialogue here. Paul, let's see. We got Drew Phillips. Hey, Ben, looking sharp. Sending love from sunny California. Appreciate you, Drew. Lisa Thomas checking in from Ann Arbor, Michigan, right down the road from me. Another Midwesterner. Let's see. Hosea Botley from Reversal. Hello, Hosea. We got Michael Quigley checking in. Molly Feldman. Chris Lagerman. Hey, Chris, how are you? Best guest yet. Nice. It's always nice when the home team comes out for you, right?
Yeah. He's got a vested interest in saying that.
Nice. Did you send the memo out like, you guys better tune in at 4 o'clock?
So, Ben, I got to ask you, where did the three-piece suit come from?
All right. 100%, Paul. Here it goes. Okay. This is completely candid. I'm a big guy. I don't know if you know this about me, Paul. Have you never said, hey, Ben's a big guy, Yeah.
You were smaller when I first met you.
Yeah. That's how long we've known each other, right? No, but no, yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm a big guy, so I feel like I got to dress it up, or else I just look sloppy, So I dress it up a little extra, and I think it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. So, Yeah,
just curious. You always look sharp.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. That's a very smart jacket you're wearing there as well.
Oh, thank you,
Paul. Very nice, very nice. Paul always busts my chops when I come in. He's like, "There's the suit again." I love it. Sandra Clary, hi Ben, Janet, Paul from Hot and Humid Hilton Head Island. Great topic. Wow, Hilton Head. Good night. Mark Gray checking in from St. Augustine Beach. Everybody's on vacation. What are you people not working Relo? Mark Gray, have you got thunderstorms too? Talking about the weather. Look at the recruiting business is down 60 to 75%.
Yeah.
I believe it. I mean, and that's industry specific to us, but I mean, that's also talent, right? And talent feeds what we do. Are you worried at all about the change in talent acquisition and how that might impact our business, Paul?
Well, if you're in the hospitality industry and business, I would say yes. I don't see that our clients have stopped recruiting wholesale by any means. They've put maybe the brakes on some things, but our people still need their people where they need them, right? So, can you do Zoom calls and Zoom business all the time forever? I would say no. It's great that we can do this and have this kind of forum, but do you really want to do business without having a chance to meet somebody and shake their hand and really get to know them in terms of what they do for you and how do you establish a true partnership, and can you really do that over this kind of a device? And I'd argue that the answer is still no. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great for those initial introductions, but you still want to get to know your clients. You want to get to know the partners you're working with and to be able to interact with them on a daily basis. I mean, shoot, we all go to ERC or some type of an arrangement. And when have you been at a Relo meeting where you're not getting hugs from everybody, right?
Right.
And not having that touch and that feel for people and getting to know people, I think is so critical. So, just getting back to your question about the recruiting, I think it's going to come back because of the business that is out there in terms of non-hospitality, and that's starting to kick in a little bit as well. But I understand the airline industry and those types of things are down. But I think the people that are hurting now in our industry are not only the recruiters, but the temporary living companies as well. And I feel really bad for them in terms of trying to fill their spaces and fill their units. And with companies, everybody kind of sheltering in place right now, it's got to be real difficult for them.
You mentioned something about going to Worldwide ERC and networking and building those kind of relationships, those kind of partnerships, and that's something I definitely feel with your company, with Chris Lagerman. I mean, especially, right? And I love those environments. I love them. I mean, that's one of the reasons I did this show, is because of the love I've felt at those conferences, and wanting to bring those moments and put them on tape and let people into that moment that I've had so many times. But did you see an announcement that just came out a few hours ago from Worldwide ERC saying that they were basically not going to have an in-person meeting in October, and instead we're going to roll with a month of virtual content sessions? They kind of were vague about it: networking, benchmarking, a lot of buzzwords, from October 28th through November 20th, I believe. That's going to be crazy. I mean, this is a year where now 2 ERCs have been, I hate to say canceled, but virtualized.
Mm-hmm.
How do we continue to build those types of relationships and market our services in this new normal?
It's a good question, Ben. I wish I had a great answer. I did see the announcement about ERC. I did see the fact that they're going to go do some kind of virtual thing. I didn't read it all, quite honestly. I just kind of scanned it. So I saw the fact that they were going to cancel the meeting. I'm not surprised about that, considering where everything's at this year. A little concerning with ERC in terms of, what's their viability going to be like going forward without getting some of these revenue producing activities that they need to survive. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to the organization going forward. I know that they're doing a webinar next week. I think that Ed and Lynn,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're putting together a session next week. Maybe they'll answer that question. So it's a little concerning in terms of, how long are they going to be able to be a viable entity without having some of that revenue that they need. So, but going back to your questions, how are we going to do this? I felt for a long time, ERC is great and it's a great networking opportunity, but you have to create your own business, right? So you're going to have to go out and make your own things happen, and not relying on something like that, but really, doing, traditional sales activities and reaching out to people and creating your own sessions and trying to get people engaged in things like this.
Yeah, I think you're right, and obviously, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that we do here, and to your point about the association, right? I mean, their biggest value proposition, I think, was and is still, getting a whole bunch of people in the room together around a couple of cocktails and a little bit of thought leadership, and seeing what happens. And now that the getting a whole bunch of people in a room together is out, and then you have platforms like this and so many other podcasts and just webinars and et cetera going on, it's questionable, to your point, what is the value proposition of the association moving forward? Very interesting point. Faye Hawksworth says, "Hey, Ben and Paul, new home sale initiations are down compared to last year, but up this month compared to last. We are getting there." Have you seen that, Paul, what Faye is talking about? I've heard some people describe it as a buyer bump, but it's still lagging the inventory necessary to complete those transactions. The demand is there, but not the supply.
Yeah, no, I would agree with Faye. And we're probably a reflection on that because Faye does some of our work. Hello, Faye. And so I think I agree with her. We were up this month as well, and we'll probably, we anticipate seeing that. We had some of our clients that kind of went AWOL, not in the sense that they weren't working, but that they'd all gone home and worked from home and did slow down. And they're all now kind of coming back to the office, and they're starting to, authorizations are starting to kick through, and they're starting to kind of get back at it in a real way. So I think that trend's going to continue.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. We talk also about, getting back to work, right? So I was at home for a couple of months. I've been back in the office now for about 3 weeks, maybe 4 now. How have you managed that with WHR Group?
So, it's really interesting. So obviously we have business continuity plans and we have pandemic response plans, but no way in hell did we ever think we'd ever have to use them. And so as soon as
Right.
this happened, we were kind of taking it day by day, getting news in terms of what's going on with this virus and what was going to happen in the United States. And, kind of like we are now, we're kind of learning more and more about the spread and how it spreads and all that kind of stuff. So what we did immediately was essentially close the office down in terms of people being here. We put our pandemic response plan into play. And, I don't want to say it worked flawlessly, but it worked extremely well. So everybody went home. If I took my camera and I walked around our office building right now, you'd see just a bunch of dark space, right? But you'd see everybody's computer on, and you'd see everybody working at their computer. And unbeknownst to my employees, I go around and look. No, I'm just kidding. But so what's interesting is we put that plan into place. Everybody's been working from home. Have we had the miscellaneous login issues or connectivity issues? Yes, but overall, it's worked extremely well. All of our systems, like I'm sure all of my competitors out there, they're integrated via their computers and their smartphones and all of that. So it's worked extremely well in terms of letting everybody work from home, and everybody has been working from home. We just put a play in place to bring everybody back. We're not going to do it next week. We're going to do it on the July 6th, will be the first week back. And we've done a couple of things to make that happen. One is we've invested in this hospital grade technology, which is everybody's going to walk around the office with basically a name badge and what looks like a little like pencil eraser. And that pencil eraser will be tagged to various hand sanitizing machines around the office, and also any kitchen facility or washroom or training room or conference room or whatever it may be. And every time you enter one of those new spaces, that badge will alert you to use the hand sanitizer, whether it's in the washroom to use soap and water, or whether it's kind of a Purell stand around the facility. The other neat thing about the badge, what it'll do is if you and I are in a room together, Ben, and I come within 6 feet of you, my badge will start to beep. And it's simply an alert to say, hey, you need to back up, you need to separate, you need to have some distance from Ben. And so it also then does contact tracing. So in the event I would get sick, for example, that badge would have a record of who I interacted with around our office. And it would be able to say, hey, Paul, you had interactions with, Bill, Tom, and Sue. Hey, Bill, Tom, and Sue, you know what? You guys should probably go home, work from home. And then after a while, let's see how you are, and then come back to the office. And the way we're doing it is we're staggering everybody. So for the first week, half of the company will come in. They'll work Monday through Thursday in the office. Everybody will work from home on Friday. And then the following week, the other half of the office will come in Monday through Thursday, and everybody will work from home on Friday. And the reason being is if somebody in that group would get sick, well, the other people would have gotten sick when they're next scheduled to come in. So it gives you that space and span of time to make sure that they either are not sick, right? Or that if they do happen to get symptoms of some sort, they'll know to stay home. And then everybody will have their temperature checked when they come into the office and that type of thing. So we're going at it in a very methodical and logical way, what we think is a best practice way in terms of making sure we get everybody back together. I don't think we can have a sustainable company with everybody working from home. We just built a culture in our company that we work together and we service our transferees and our clients together, and we need to be together to make that happen. And having, this person work from home or that person work from home, we're kind of old school. We don't like it that way. We like everybody to be together and to have one common, message that we give out to transferees and clients.
Paul, I got to tell you, that's probably the most impressive protocol that I've heard so far. The comments are actually reflecting that as well. I think everybody's pretty impressed with that. I've never heard of the pencil eraser. I think I've needed that pencil eraser in the grocery store a couple of times, where
Right.
I just want to tell people to get out of my way. Like, you're too close to me, right?
Right. It's actually technology that's in hospitals. So
Okay.
one of the biggest problems in hospitals are secondary infections. So, and I'm sure everybody's heard about that. Somebody goes into the hospital for something, and then all of a sudden they get sepsis or they get some kind of infection that really gives them something that they didn't even have entering the hospital. So hospitals actually use it, and nurses and doctors, when they enter rooms. Johns Hopkins, for example, uses this in their hospital facilities. So they know that when they go into a room, that badge will beep if they don't wash their hands. So they have to go over, they've got to pump the hand sanitizer or wash their hands. And then when they go to the next room, the same thing happens. So it's really just an application from hospitals that we're putting into our company.
Well, and I think we all get a little lazy sometimes with these things, you know, and complacent. And so this kind of reminds us, people are saying, I love the backup beeping. People have all sorts of questions about this. So I don't know if you know the answers to all these, but someone's asking, Janet's asking, hey, Janet, who is putting out that technology that Paul is bringing into the office?
It's a company in Florida, actually, called IO and Intelligent Objective. And I can send you, Ben, the source material on it if you want to pass it around to people.
Yeah, I'll post it on the Love and Relo Facebook page, and people can reference it after this talk because, you know, love that idea. People are loving it right now. Tim Quirk asked, is there any HIPAA or GDPR compliance issues with that badge or tracking?
Yeah, you know, Tim, I was having that question with a couple of people the other day. They were talking about HIPAA violations. And then what I'm hearing is during the course of a pandemic, a lot of those violations or things that were violations have kind of gone away. So we don't see any HIPAA violations with it. From a GDPR standpoint, that technology will not work outside of our office space. So it's only for our employees. And it doesn't collect any PII. So there's nothing there other than the fact of who that badge is assigned to with a name. And then it'll only tell me who I've interacted with. You know, for example, Chris or Roger at our company, it'll only tell me their names. And we would only go back and do it from a contact tracing standpoint if there was an issue. And, you know, we had the same question come up saying, you know, I don't want WHR following my every move. And it only works in our office. And if you want to leave the badge in our office when you leave, you're welcome to do that. So we don't see any issues with that.
Yeah, I've heard that they've made exceptions around COVID, you know, as well, just for the public health.
Right.
Great stuff. That's fantastic. We got some other questions here coming in. Jill Heineck makes a statement here. Inventory is low or nil, but what we are seeing here in ATL is buyers are looking for new homes for the new work from home revolution. So resale sales are lagging. More change is to come. Do you see, Paul, the work from home revolution being real, or is it hype or something in between?
I think it'll be something in between, right? Again, you know, am I going to do work with Jill if I've never met her before? Maybe, but you know, I really want to meet her. You know, I want an opportunity to know what she does, how she does things, show me Atlanta, you know, show me around in terms of what neighborhoods are the best, really get to know how she interacts with transferees and what she does and what her uniques are in terms of the ability to service people. So I think it'll be somewhere in between. I don't think, I just don't see how it can be 100% work from home. And I think of it from our own application of our people. You know, if we have new employees come into the company, how the heck are they going to learn if everybody's working from home? And how are they going to hear those phone calls that they're having, that experienced people are having with transferees? Because that's how you learn, right? You hear how people handle certain situations, and you know, you lose all that when everybody's working from home. So you know, people that are experienced need to be here to train the new people, and new people need to learn from the experienced people. So, you know, we like to have everybody within our facility, but I think it'll be some kind of mix as well. Will we be able to offer a work from home on Friday as a summer inducement or a summer program for people, possibly, or maybe even year round? But I don't see us implementing, from our business anyways, from a service standpoint, implementing everybody work from home.
Yeah, you know, and the other part of her question here is interesting too, about the different types of houses. in order to accommodate some of these other, whether it be work from home, school from home, gym from home, whatever types of amenities that they're looking for in the homes. And much has been made about, these urban affluents, right? Who are living, with their six-figure incomes, but in town, in the cities, in high rises, whatever. Do you see more of a shift to the suburbs for that type of population, and then therefore perhaps more home purchases or home sales and relocation?
I agree with Jill in the sense that we're seeing the same thing around the country in terms of cities to suburbs, and we're seeing some of that. I think it's too early to say, without more empirical data, because I don't know, but I am hearing that anecdotally from a lot of people that, the cities are, people are looking away from the cities, going back to the suburbs. I don't know if that's a trend or if that's something that'll continue. I do agree, though, it is interesting. For example, when I work from home, I work in my oldest son he graduated college last year. And so he's technically out of our house, but he's still in our house, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
And so his bedroom is my home office. So,
okay.
Having my own home office would be a nice thing to have, which I don't currently, other than that room. But he's always been gone, except he's decided to come back and live with us for the summer. So that makes it difficult for me. So I do see some changes in terms of the way houses are structured and styled.
Did you tell them, hey, if you're going to live here, you're now considered an intern because you're sleeping in my office?
Right.
Tom Bruin says, great point, Paul. Chairside training has been one of the primary training protocols at every RMC I've worked at. Paul, I want to talk about you here.
Trainer in his life one day too. He'll get a good chuckle out of that. He'll know what I mean. Tom and I started together 30 years ago.
Yeah. So here you are. You're the president of WHR Group. Awesome. Right. But how did you get started in relocation?
Well, you saw that Tom Bruin right there. Him and I actually started 30 plus years ago at a company called Home Equity in Oak Brook. And for people that haven't been in the industry long enough, Home Equity is Cardis today. And so I started 30 years ago in 1985, 86, looking for a job. And the economy wasn't the greatest. I think mortgage interest rates were in the 12, 13, 14% area, something like that. And frankly, I was just looking for a job. And I think like a lot of people, I kind of lucked into the industry. I went to a job fair. I was interested in real estate, happened to see this company called Home Equity, never heard of them before, interviewed with them, and I was lucky enough to get a job. And that was kind of my foray into this business. And, like a lot of people talk about, once they suck you in, it's hard to get you out, right? Yeah. And so I worked at a third-party relocation company in Home Equity for about 8-9 years, had some nice experiences there, was able to live in California for a couple of years, working on a group move of a big company out of Southern California to Arizona. And then I got an opportunity to work for Andersen Worldwide, which was the Arthur Andersen and Andersen Consulting at the time, which is Accenture today, and spent about 10 years there managing their internal relocation program. And then I had an opportunity to come to this organization, which was a smaller company at the time. I think we had about 25 people when I first joined about 13 years ago. And so it's just been something where I've, I landed in this industry and I never left.
We hear that so often, right? I mean, you just kind of fall into it, but somehow you get stuck and you're like, what do you, I'm going to ask you this. I mean, what do you think that is? I hear that all the time from folks I talk to where they they fall into it. They were looking for a job. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was looking for a job. First job I got, got me on this career path. I mean, what is it you think about the industry that does that?
I think it's a lot of nice people, right? I mean, it's HR, it's dealing with people. One of the things that we have is that when we hire people, we look for people that are empathetic, that I'm sure a lot of people in this industry look for. And how can you put yourself in the shoes of a transferring employee? And so it has a lot of really nice people in it that really like to help people. And so once you find this industry, I think a lot of people really enjoy it because people are nice, they're kind. Even if you're competitors, you typically have good, solid relationships with people, even though you're all trying to get each other's business, right? So I think that's one of the reasons that people stick to it.
I saw a press release that WHR Group turned 25 this year.
Yep. Yeah.
What do you think has made WHR Group successful over the years? And can you tell the story kind of how the company started and where it is today?
Sure. Well, I think the success all starts with our owner. He's a gentleman named Roger Troon. He's been in the industry as long as I have. I think we met in the first day that we were at Home Equity together. Our paths kind of took different routes, but he started this company 25 years ago, and he really started it kind of as a fluke. And I mean that in the sense that he was between jobs and he had 2 young kids that he needed to feed, and he needed income. And so a friend of ours, a mutual acquaintance at Kraft Foods at the time, actually needed some help in his reload program and was willing to hire him. But he really didn't want to go to work for a company because he had kind of had some bad experience at his last employer. So he said, well, what can I help you with? And Larry Gersh from Kraft at the time said, well, I get all these appraisals in, and I really need somebody to order the appraisals, reconcile the appraisals, come up with the value, and give me the file so I can help the transferee through the next phase of the relocation. And so really that's all he really started to do. And he started doing that for Larry, and he did it really, really well. And
yeah,
he was beating the competitors that Larry was using, and he was even beating his own internal team in terms of the quickness of processing these transactions. And Larry was really impressed and said, boy, this is great, Roger. I really appreciate everything you're doing for me. I've referred you to a couple other companies, if you don't mind. And he said, oh, okay. And then before you know it, McDonald's was a client and State Farm was a client. And it was just one of those things that just kind of evolved organically. In fact, Roger was using his Social Security number at the time for his business, which was
his tax ID in lieu of his tax ID.
Yeah, smart thing to do. And after he had a few clients under his belt, he basically said, well, maybe I've got something here. And he incorporated and he became a company. And that's kind of the way WHR has grown over time. And each time something came up, Roger met the challenge and said, you know what, I need to do this. And we have a motto, and he has a motto more than anybody that says, we either grow or we're going to die. And so every time somebody came to him and said, Roger, could you do this? His unequivocal answer was, yes, I can. And one of the largest clients that we had at the time said to him, Roger, we have 50 people handling Relo internally. We're going to outsource the whole thing. Would you be interested in taking it on? And he had to think long and hard because that was a big step. And he said, well, of course. And the next day he had to hire about 10 people right away. But he took that challenge on, and he was able to integrate that into the organization and really kind of took the next step to be a full service relocation management company by, doing the full buyout, doing the home sale, doing household goods moves, and now we do international moves as well. We're expanding into Europe and Asia this year, which has its own issues right now with everything going on, but we're going forward with that. And that's the way we built the company in a nutshell. I'd have to sit here and talk to you for a few hours to give you the full story, but it's really a question of, every time there's been an opportunity, we've seized on it, and we've taken it and we've ran with it.
I see that in the way that y'all do business. And I mean, having worked with y'all for a few years, and actually I think I might have my WHR, provider trophy around here somewhere. But one of the things that always impressed me about the way that y'all do your business is a lot of companies are focused on technology innovation, and your technology is very good. But what I'm saying is they're focused on technology innovation in order to say, like, win RFPs or roll something out or issue a press release. But one of the things that's really impressed me about the way that y'all do business is you're innovating your processes. Mm-hmm. And you're doing little things that are really smart, that are, in my opinion, ahead of the curve. I mean, like you just described this whole hand sanitizer beeping, thing, right? I mean, like that just to me, like, makes a ton of sense, and everybody loved it in the comments. And I haven't heard anybody else doing that, right? But there's a couple things over the last few years. I mean, when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, for instance, came out in 2017, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I mean, this is just my experience. When the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act came out in 2017, which now made relocation a taxable income on your W-2, employees' W-2s. I remember, and that thing came out like overnight in December, right before the end of the year. And we were getting emails from your staff like right away saying, hey, if you've got any invoices, send them now. Don't wait till January. I know you're all planning your Christmas party, but put the fruitcake down and send us the invoices. And that made a huge difference in the taxability of those invoices. And frankly, that was the only email I got from an RMC that I do business with, a dozen, let's say. That was the only email I got asking for that. Just recently when we were having, and I just like, it's a simple thing, but it's like, how come nobody else is doing that? So where does that come from to maybe think a little differently and just kind of take action? There seems like there's a shorter gap between a good idea and execution.
Well, it's probably a long answer, Ben, but
it's a long question, Paul, so take your time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, simple things like that, right? I mean, that's what we do. We work for our clients and we work only in their best interest, right? So what can we do to make things better for them? And so when things like that come about, you want to grab onto them right away and tell the movers, get things in right away so we can take credit for that for this year. And I'm sure that some companies out there took credit, even though they were processed 2018 and they took the risk on it, fine. But we just thought it would be, we want to be proactive. I hear sometimes, and I think maybe you've even described this, that you talk about our technology being, there's a lot of sizzle but no steak. In other words, that it doesn't necessarily look the best, and we can take that criticism to heart, and we're working on that thing. But I think our technology is actually fantastic, and I would venture to say that it's probably one of the best in the industry in terms of what it can do, and just by doing little things like we just implemented, everybody does surveys, right? I always call relocation, it's the biggest liars club in the world, right? Everybody's service is 95% or 96%, right, or whatever it may be. Right. But how do you integrate your technology and how do you make that survey process better? And so some of the things that we've done is we've created activity texting that's system driven, but is in real time. So, if people get a 30, 40, 50% survey return rate, they're satisfied with that, right? They think that's pretty good. And what we said is that, how do you get better than that? And one of the things that people are surveyed to death, right? Every time you buy something online, you get a survey. And so how many do you actually fill out? And it kind of goes down with the more interactions that you have like that. But we kind of thought of, well, what happens when somebody gets a text? People are with their phone. They say something like 95% of the time you're within 2 feet of your phone. And so how many times when you get a text, do you answer it? I think as scammers get more and more text driven, you may see less of it. But for the most part, when you get a text, you answer it. Yeah. And so what we've done is we've created our survey process from being this, we were the first in the industry, we think, that did a mid-process survey. In other words, about 10, 15 days into the process, we'd survey somebody to say, hey, how are things going? And then we'd also survey them at the end. And so we'd have these two periods of time where we could really affect service. And you really can't affect service at the last one. So really, you can only affect service at that first one. So if somebody's got an issue with that mid-process survey, you're going to be able to correct it. But what if we could even improve it from there? And so little things that we do that we've integrated into our technology as we take people through the process is we send them a simple text. For example, did the mover schedule their time with you? Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's all we're asking for. Just give us a simple thumbs up, thumbs down. If we get a thumbs up, great, everything's going well. If we get a thumbs down, well, there's an issue. We need to jump in, we need to correct it, and we need to make it happen. But the other thing that we did with that is we built APIs with some of our vendor network or supplier network. I hate when I call people vendors. Everybody's a supplier and everybody's a partner in this business. But what we did with our suppliers is we built APIs. So when you send us for example, a delivery date or a pickup date, that gets integrated into our system automatically. And then that can trigger the thumbs up or thumbs down request to the employee. So we do that with all of our processes in terms of, did the movers show up on time? Did the appraisers show up on time? Did the DSP make the phone call when they were supposed to? Did you get picked up at the airport on time? Just really simple things that we can affect. And frankly, we get on a lot of them, we get about a 90% return rate, 95% return rate. And most of the time we're getting a thumbs up. Not all the time, but it's great that we're not, because then we can correct it. And so at the end of the day, hopefully, and we believe that transferee will have a best service experience that they've ever had.
Yeah, I love this idea, right? Because so often here I sit in my chair, right, and I read all the surveys, and I'm like, okay, good job, bad job, maybe could have done better job, and I'm like, man, if I would have just known. And then I go to my coordinator and I say, hey, did you call them on the pack day? And what they said, everything was good. They said everything was fine. They said very satisfied. I don't know what happened, but then sometimes they'll do things via text, because it's private, it's anonymous, whatever. And they'll tell our RMC client, let's say, and that's an opportunity for us to be proactive in that moment, instead of waiting, to your point, till after delivery when we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Right.
And so then we get that, then you get that notification saying, hey, thumbs down on something. You call me and you're like, Ben, I got a thumbs down. I'm like, thumbs down, what can I do about this, right? And so I call and I say, ma'am, sir, I would love to make sure you have an outstanding world-class experience. What do I need to do? Please tell me, and I'm going to make it right. And then I'm still at origin. I can fix that, Yeah.
And it's also, it's also giving people confidence in the expectations that we tell them, that we say, hey, Ben's going to call you in 2 days. Well, if Ben doesn't call you and we get a thumbs down, the expectation isn't met. But if Ben calls in 2 days, hey, great.
Yeah. And I call those like little micro promises, right? Because if we can satisfy all these little micro commitments and micro promises to the customer, then the experience is amazing, right? Because there's usually not like a silver bullet thing. It's like a lot of little things that establish trust in the process. You got a comment here. Very innovative survey process. Love the texting. I love that you guys share your paragraphs of praise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact that we actually get the verbatim, there's some of our clients out there where we bust our behinds trying to deliver a world-class experience, and the survey process is 3 months in arrears. We don't know where we stand.
Yeah,
people have.
That's the other part of it. It's real time, and so that's the great part, is that you're not surveying something from the past. You're surveying in real time and while the experience is happening. So it's just a much better process in terms of trying to have somebody reflect on the past experience.
Well, and people who watch the show all the time, will know that I rant about portals, right? About logging into portals and all the, what I consider double data entry. But I will say, of all the portals that I use, Paul, I think your company's is probably the best and most user-friendly user interface. And what I love about it, two things I love about it. One, I love the fact that I input the driver's name. Mm-hmm. So then you can report back to me how my drivers do on your specific shipments, which I think is amazing. Nobody does that. And the second thing is I can see my score in real time. And so as soon as I get a survey back from Jane Doe, I see my little meter tick forward one, right? And then I love that feedback, instant feedback.
Yeah. And we really want to drill down to the person that's having the activity with the transferee. So not only do we want to know the driver, but we want to know the real estate agent as well. We love the fact that the real estate communities that we use have relocation directors, and we love working with the relocation directors, but we want to know the agent, and we want to have a conversation with the agent. Not all the time, but sometimes when we're getting feedback from a transferee that, isn't necessarily happy with the process. Well, instead of it going from me to the relo director to the agent, back to the relo director to me, let's have that conversation directly. And so I think to me, that's the biggest thing.
Tom Brun says, what does Paul feel to be the biggest differentiators at WHR Group?
You want me to give my sales lesson out to everybody?
Hey, he opened the door, you might as well walk through it.
I think our biggest differentiator is service, and I know everybody will say that, but I feel we do things similar to what we were just talking about in the survey process, that we do things a little different. We don't use voicemail, for example, during business hours. We feel like this is one of the biggest stress-producing things in somebody's life. We don't have a call center. We work in an old-fashioned model, which I'm proud of. We have a relocation counselor backed up by an associate, and that team will take that transferee through the entire process. And so you're not calling into a call center. You're not going to get a different person every time. You're going to get your dedicated team to take you through that experience of relocation. And then I think the other thing that we do too is we've adopted NPS, and we've adopted that for the last 5, 6, 7 years, net promoter scoring, which to me really reflects service and differentiates ourselves from the liars club of relocation companies, so to speak, because it's an opportunity to ask a single question. And it was developed by 2 Bain guys that came out of Wharton Business School. And it's a simple question that says, would you recommend WHR Group to a friend or a family member? If your answer is 9 or 10 on a 0 to 10 point scale, you get a point. If your answer is 6 to 8, you get a 0. And if it's below 6, you get a -1. So there are people in companies that actually have negative net promoter scores. And so we ask that question not only to our client base, but we also ask it to every transferring employee. Would you recommend WHR Group to a friend or a family member? And we're right around 80 right now in our net promoter score, which probably puts us at the top 1% of companies throughout the world.
So if people know anything about net promoter score, because we also try net promoter score, about 50 to 60 is considered like world class or like industry leading, and so to your point, it's not that 0 to 100% scale of customer satisfaction where everybody's at that 95, 96, this ridiculously inflated number. It's a scale, I think, where you can actually see some real.
Yeah, and the people at the top of that chart are companies like the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons Hotel, and Nordstrom's. And I got to tell you, it's a heck of a lot harder to transfer a family from one country to another country or one city to another city than it is to sell a shirt, right? So to have a net promoter score that high is really really differentiates ourselves, we believe, from our competitors.
Paul, I've noticed something similar, and we've talked about this before, but I love the way y'all do things, but where does that culture come from? Where's that culture of operational excellence and just being kind of smart about the way you do things? I mean, where does that come from?
Well, it really started with Roger. It really started with him at the top, servicing his client base at the time when he was acting alone. But then it really comes from our employees, and it goes to how we hire people, and we look for 5 key skills in terms of what they have. They have to be hardworking. And we talked about empathy before. They have to be empathetic. They have to be trustworthy. They have to be able to put themselves in the shoes of a client. They have to be results driven. In terms of making sure that the results that they achieve are good, solid results, and they have to be proactive. I mean, the worst thing in the world is to hire a service and then you as a customer have to follow up with them, right? So you have to have all of those things. So that culture, it started at the top, but it really boils down to the people that we hire and the employees that we bring in to service the transferring employees. I don't talk to transferees anymore based on the role that I'm in, but it's critical that we reflect those values down to the people that we do hire and the people that are talking to those transferees. So from the receptionist on up to our CFO, when we hire somebody, we look for those attributes and being able to have that be reflective of WHR.
Yeah, and you talk about Roger's story, right? Starting off, working for a third-party relocation company, and then becoming, and then doing the appraisals and everything, and actually being kind of customer facing in those roles. You talk about your background. Chris Lagerman, dropped a comment here before, and I know he's done every job in the building, and as an operations leader for you, I think that's one of the things when I look at your organization is that the people who are at the top actually have experience being at the bottom, and knowing what the customers need, and so I think things become a lot more intuitive when you've actually talked to customers and you have that experience in your blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris deserves a lot of credit, quite honestly. I told him I'd give him a shout out today, but in all honesty, Chris deserves a lot of credit because he was one of the first employees at WHR. He's been here longer than I have. And he really kind of, that sunk into him from Roger. And he's the one that drives a lot of that excellence now in terms of what we do, in terms of servicing clients. We don't lose clients. In the 25 years we've been here, we've lost one client. And I could go on and give you an excuse about why, but we lost the client, right? But we don't lose clients. They're hard to get, right? Everybody in this industry knows that. And so when we get them, we want to service the heck out of them. So, we're really cognizant about providing, just an unparalleled level of service.
And I'll say one other thing too, on behalf of service providers out there. It's nice when you work with a company that doesn't beat the hell out of you as a service provider, where you're not always wrong, where it's a true partnership, where you can have a conversation about a situation, and you have a client in an RMC, that will actually listen and say, let me understand this better, and sometimes even defend the service provider in the situation, right? Sometimes the transferee is trying to pull one over or something, and actually get in.
I have to apologize. I use that term vendor, and I'm always hammering down to our people here is like, these are not vendors. These are our service partners. When is the last time you actually met a transferring employee? Oops, sorry, I knocked my garbage can over. When is the last time you actually met a transferring employee? And the answer is we really don't, right? I mean, we're on the phone with them all the time. We'll do a Skype call. We'll do a call like this with them potentially, but we don't physically meet them. And so those relocation partners, they're our eyes and ears out there. And so if they're not making good impression, that's a reflection on us. So we want to make sure that we have a great relationship with our supply chain and that we're all partners in this together.
Eddie Marks, a friend of the show here, commented, WHR Group's wonderful culture is demonstrated through long tenured team members. Yeah, I definitely see that. I love working with Adam Rasmussen over there too. Great guy. Katie Linehan says, WHR, in my experience, has always been very client customer focused. No surprise on your comment, Ben, regarding notification on Tax Act. Yeah. I mean, same thing just happened recently with the, all the protests. I got a proactive email from the Move Group asking if any of our shipments were going to be impacted due to protests. All these RMCs, they say, communication is everything. Please let us know if somebody's sneezes, I want to know about it, but they're not reaching out proactively. When I got that email, I'm like, let me think about that. I had not considered it. And so we went in, we ran them all, and we said, well, maybe this one on the south side of Chicago might have an issue. Didn't turn out to have an issue, but none of the other ones look like they were. But just even having that conversation, that was not a conversation that we were even thinking about, So, sure. Kudos to the team. I got a personal question here from Ms. Kilgore. Paul, did your vacation get canceled? And if so, what is your backup vacation plan?
My vacation did get canceled earlier this year. We're due to go to South Carolina at the end of July, but who knows what's going to happen with that based on what's happening in South Carolina. So that's my vacation plan right now.
Nice. Some more kudos for the team. Love working with Adam and Tyler from Hosea.
Thanks, Hosea.
Lynn says, hi, Paul and Ben, client, customer, and provider first. Focus brings success. Yeah, agreed. Tom has a relo question here. Any thoughts around the executive order this week?
What executive? I think it's going to be a problem, right? I mean, it's going to be a problem for people bringing talent into the United States potentially. I've always wondered, why do we allow people to come here, get a PhD, and then not want them here? Don't you want those highly talented people to stay in our country and do things for the good of the United States? So I think it is going to be a problem in terms of not allowing those people in. And conversely, I think it's going to be a problem with us trying to go, not just us, WHR, but with US companies trying to send their talent to other parts of the world. The European Union is going to come out with a directive either at the end of this week or next week saying, do they want Americans going over there to work and to vacation? And the answer may be no, based on our what's going on right now with COVID. And what's going to happen with other countries? Are they going to have retaliatory measures in place because of what we're doing? So I think, the jury's out in terms of what's going to happen, but I don't think that's a good thing that we have going on. If it's truly for the health of people, I get it. But then let's do a quarantine type thing like they did in New Zealand. And I know there's other issues around some of the stuff that companies or countries are doing in terms of shutting down, and then the business implications. And I know there's always two sides to the story. But how do we make it so it can be done in an orderly fashion rather than put out a blanket ban?
Yeah. Great point. Excellent point. I agree with everything you just said. Let's see here. Mary says, as a service partner, having RMCs that answer their phones and emails and values our relationships as part of the team makes our work much easier. Communication is very important. Yeah, I laugh because there's some companies out there that will say, you've reached the desk of Ben Cross. Today is June 24th. I will be in the office all day long. And it's like, okay, super. When am I going to get a call back? You know what I mean? So I call you guys, and I may call Adam or something. I don't get Adam. I get somebody on his desk, and Adam's in a meeting. I'll call you right back. Can I take a message? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Or maybe you can handle this for me. That's just nice. Especially, people are moving these days. It's funny you call that an old school approach, but see, I would call that like an instant on-demand approach as well. Because if I'm a transferee and I'm calling for an answer because my movers are at my doorstep, or I need to close today, or whatever, to me it's urgent, or else I wouldn't be calling because nobody picks up the telephone anyway. I need to get an answer. I need to get some sort of closure. I need a human being on the other end of this lifeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why we're open on Saturday and Sunday too, Ben, just for that very reason, that we keep a staffed office, and it's not a full staff obviously, but we have people in our office on Saturday and Sunday that are dedicated to the weekend crew. Because you're right, when a transferee calls on the weekend, that's a really important call because something's gone wrong, and they need an answer on something. And it's easy to say, here's my cell phone, but how many people are truly engaged when they're not in the office? Typically you're at a kid's baseball game or soccer game or something like that. And so how can you do it? And the other thing that we always ask transferees on our surveys as well is, did you receive your answer on your very first try? And we run at about 94% on that in terms of affirmative. And so when people call, they get their answer completed on that very first ring, rather than having it to play that phone game tag. Because you're right, a lot of the follow-up questions that people have when they call in for a second time after that initial conversation with the counselor, anybody can answer those questions. It's hey, I lost my mover's phone number. Do you have it? Well, sure, I know Ben's phone number. Or,
yeah.
Hey, the appraiser didn't show up when they said they were going to show up. Can you help me? Yeah, let me get on the phone with them, call them right then and there, and give the people an answer back. So it's simple things, but I think it makes a big difference.
We've been talking about service a lot today, and we got a ton of service providers watching, 30 something, watching right now, probably most of which are service providers. Where do you see opportunities for us to be better? Where do you see opportunities for us to improve the supply chain, improve in our partnership, improve in the amazing experiences that we curate for employees who are relocating?
I think that, I'm sorry, I missed who it was on that last comment that popped up when they talked about communication. Maybe it wasn't that one, but answering the phone is. But communication is the key, right? I mean, whenever there's a problem, you just want to know what's going on, right? Everybody understands problems happen, mistakes happen, but how do you address it, and how do you communicate it? So the better you can communicate and the more timely you can communicate is the best thing to happen. How many times are you sitting on a runway? Well, nobody is right now, but how many times are you sitting on a plane and all of a sudden the pilot says we're going to be delayed a half an hour? Everybody understands there's delays, whether it's weather or equipment or whatever. You just want to know why. Why are we delayed 30 minutes? Just tell me why. And a lot of times they don't do that. And it just really infuriates people and frustrates people. So the better communication you can have around every process, that'll win out all the time.
I love the texting too. I mean, here we are, it's 2020, and this shouldn't be so. I feel like this is still an area where we just do not exploit the texting avenue like we should. I mean, we all use it in our personal lives, but there still seems to be a gap in communicating with transferees and other business people via text. You know, I know I've traded text with you before and your staff before, you know, and it's great, you know, but there seems to be almost like a don't text the transferee kind of ethos out there. You know, what is that about? You know, do you think where do you think we are on that? Do you think we need to start using text more often to communicate?
I think you have to ask the transferee, and we do. And we say, what is the best way to communicate with you? Do you want to get text? Do you want to get emails, or do you want to get phone calls? You tell us, and we'll accommodate whatever you want. So I don't know if people feel a text is too private because it's a personal cell phone. But we ask the transferees how they want to get communicated with, and you know, I don't mind getting business text. It's just so common now that it's fine.
Right. Jane Woolston, friend of the show from Sabre Corporation, says, "Hi, Paul and Ben. Love the availability for employees to be contacted on the weekends." Yeah, right. I mean, we're working our tail off all week, right? You know, and then sometimes Saturday afternoon is the only time we get a break in the action just to manage our work.
We record the volume of calls that we get on weekends, and it's obviously not as large. But those are probably the most important phone calls we get.
Yeah, they wouldn't be calling because half of them probably think you're closed. So the fact they're calling is probably like, hey, I really need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Awesome. Paul, you know, this has been a lot of fun. We've had some really great questions and engagement from folks. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you want to leave us with in closing?
I don't think so, Ben. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'm happy to do it again sometime. I'd love to get more people engaged in the conversation as well. I think what a lot of this about, and I don't mean to take your word love from you, but I think we really love what we do as a company, and we want to bring people together that really want to help and service people. And so I think that if you have that in your body, and if you have it in your being to want to service someone and to help people through a situation, you're going to be successful in this business. And I think that's a lot of what we've brought to WHR in terms of our clients and making sure that their transferring employees, who's their most important asset, right, has a great experience through a relocation process, be it here in the United States or somewhere around the world.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, throw a heart down there in the comments for the love. Appreciate you, Paul, so much for taking time to be with us today and answer all of our questions. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.